Let's give YouTube a moment to fire up. But hello, welcome to another video on YouTube here. Let's see here if we're live. We should be in a moment. Let's go, YouTube. You can do it. I believe in you. Or it should be just a second. If you can see this, post a comment. Let me know when you're where you're from. If you have any questions, I want to go through these pretty quickly, just to make sure I get through them all and make sure everyone can learn a lot at the beginning of this video. But it looks like we're ready to go. So I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. And today we're going to be talking about idioms. Lots of people ask me about these. They're not as important as learning phrasal verbs, but I have a whole program about that, so I thought I would talk about idioms today. But try to help you understand them like a native, because I think in my last video, what was that, like a week ago? I had a question from the chat about, what was that about? It was like how to say something. It was Japanese, like how to say like osaki ni shitsurei shimasu before you leave like during the or at the end of the day. And I didn't spend a lot of time talking about that, but I thought I would begin this video just mentioning that quickly because a lot of people, when they're learning a language, they learn it through translations. And so they think about how do you say an expression like this when it's much better. I'll just draw this for you visually so it's easier to think. So there's a situation, something is happening. In this case, a person is going home early. So in Japanese, people are typically polite about it and they say something like, I'm sorry for going first, like pardon me or excuse me, I'm going first. So it just means like you kind of feel bad for the other people who are still working, so you're going home before them, and that's part of the culture, and then the language comes from that. So you have the situation that leads to, we'll just say, like the language over here. And so what people try to do is they will try to translate from this language into this language in English. So let's say just from the Japanese example, so osaki ni shitsurei shimasu. So I'm sorry for going first, so we will translate that into English. But what you should be doing is really trying to look at the translation of, well, not really the translation, but just look at the situation and think like, try to go directly to the language and if there's something you should be saying. So we don't want to go from situation to vocabulary and then try to translate again. So that's where we start creating problems for how to think or remember vocabulary, and that's what causes a lot of people to struggle when they speak. So instead of beginning with vocabulary, really think about the situation and look at how a native would say something in this situation. And in this situation, a native English speaker, like in America, we just say like, see you tomorrow. We don't really feel bad for going home first. In fact, it's like the opposite for people who are like, aha, like you have to stay working or something like that. Now, it's not in a mean way, but it's kind of part of the culture. So it's a different thing. So we wouldn't take this and like translate it in the same way. We would look at the situation and try to understand how we would use or whatever for that language, for that situation, okay? So I'm starting talking about this because idioms are the same thing. And so often people will hear an idiom and then they will just try to think about, well, how do I translate this into English? So there's like an idiom like, and sometimes idioms work the same, you know, like they will have like iseki nicho. So this is like two birds with one stone. This is the same thing actually in Japanese and English. But often the specific vocabulary will be different. And the funny thing about idioms is that they often don't mean what the words sound like. So there's a little bit of a difficulty there for people understanding them if you just look at the words. But if you look at the situation, and we're going to talk about even like, we'll just kind of put like kind of the vocabulary or like the idea that goes into the situation. In this video, we'll be talking about that. And when you understand the situation and really like the origin of the vocabulary, then it's much easier to understand things directly in English. Okay, so that's my kind of long introduction to this video, but we'll get right into it. I'll check chat just to see if anybody has any questions, but I really want to make this point very clear. So this idea from going from one language to English, so whatever your native language is, this is called learning English as a second language because you're learning English through this other language. And this means you probably have to translate and think about vocabulary and grammar rules and other things that instead of just going directly from the situation itself to the English. And so how do you get this? Well, you pay attention. You pay attention to what natives do in these situations rather than trying to think about what you would say in a situation like that. So what does a native say? So instead of a Japanese person going home first, a native English speaker in Chicago or whatever, where I'm from, what do they say at the end of the day if they're leaving before someone else? They just say, well, I'll see you tomorrow. All right. So very rarely would people say, oh, I'm sorry for going first. You might have someone who's very polite say that, but it would not be very common. Okay, so always focus on the situation, and that's what we're going to talk about today as we cover a bunch of interesting idioms. All right, let's look at the chat here. Nice to see everybody. Martin, I love your videos. Glad to hear. If you guys know anyone else who would enjoy the videos, then please like them. Even if you don't tell anyone else, just click like. It's very easy to do, and that will tell YouTube, hey, like we should tell other people about this video as well. Of course, it's always nice if you tell other people and say, hey, come watch this guy. Diana says, from Mexico, nice to see you there. Oh, and Annette over there, hi, Drew. Hello from Wisconsin. Yeah, you always tell me you're from Wisconsin. I'm waiting to hear you're like in a different location or something sometime. Jugi says, hello from Canada. Eunice, hello, everyone. And Nona says, I have my first interview tomorrow in the U.S. Please wish me luck. Well, good luck. Very true what you're saying. Let's see. Glad to hear it. Let's see. Nargis, hello from Michigan. Juki, good luck. Oh, there we go. Hello from Korea. And hello from Vietnam. And got some Arabic over there. Thanks. Sometimes translating helps, but it's better to check the way natives say things. Yes. Sometimes, like when you're just hearing something, and if you're learning a language by yourself, often that's what people do. So they just get a translation because that's the fastest way to just understand what something is. But if you spend a little bit more time and think about why people say something, then it will be a little bit easier for you to understand, and you start thinking about things more like a native speaker rather than from a learner's perspective or learning a language as a second language. All right, Tiago says hello from Brazil. Let's see. I can't read the abuta no naka no yuda. Hello from Japan. Faisal's from Sudan. I see there. Hello from Indonesia. Hello from Taured and Bertha from Alabama. Look at that. That's kind of like an Alabama name, Bertha. I don't know. That's familiar to me for some reason. Giseline, hello from Brazil. Sonalio, Faisal. Oh, you guys are talking with each other. Mauritania. Look at that. People from all over the place. All right, Lewis, give him my thumbs up yet. Well, please do. Hello from China. All right, following from Haiti. Please, everyone, give a thumbs up. Yes. Enjoy the video. All right, let's begin. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at situations and how we get vocabulary for that, and then we're going to look at the origin of vocabulary. So maybe I didn't draw this picture very well, but hopefully this makes sense. So what we do on this channel is help you understand English as a first language, because that's when you start speaking. I know it might seem like you need to practice a lot. Maybe you need to speak with other people, or you need to review a lot of grammar rules or live in an English-speaking country to get fluent, but the truth is you just need to understand the language very well, because if you don't feel confident because you don't understand, then you won't speak, okay? So the whole point of this channel is to help you understand things like a native. So today I'm going to give you what I call fluency triggers, and these are things that really help you understand the language very well, help you understand it quickly so you feel confident about speaking. All right, let's go through our list over here. Nice to see little hearts floating up over there. I can't see those on my phone where I'm recording this, but all right. So the first one, So we're going to begin, we'll kind of look at all these in the same way. So we have our situation, we just put something S up here, and then we have the vocabulary down here. So don't really think about it like an idiom as a special category. That's just the name of these kinds of phrases. But it's still just vocabulary, the same way a native child would understand it. So a native child doesn't know what an idiom is. All they know is, in this situation, we say this. Okay, so that's really what a native speaker is doing when you learn English as a first language. This is how you understand it. So something happens, and then this is what people say. So let's say for our first example here, somebody is doing something, they really did it perfectly, like they could have maybe made a mistake, but the situation is, wow, they really did a fantastic job of something. And there are many ways we could express this, but the one I want to focus on first is to hit the nail on the head. To hit the nail on the head. So the situation is somebody did something amazing, like I just delivered like a really great presentation, or I had a sales call or something, and I was able to sell a product, get a large order of something, and my friends or colleagues or coworkers, they are praising me, and they're saying, wow, you really hit the nail on the head. You really hit the nail on the head. So what do they mean by that? So they mean I did a good job. But why are they saying this? So let's look at the origin of something like this, the way we would understand it like a native. So if we look at a nail, so a very simple looking nail right here, this top of the nail here, this part is called the head of the nail. So I don't know if we call this kind of like the body of the nail, but this is basically the head. And the reason we have this large flat piece is to give you a kind of larger area to hit with a hammer. Now, if you've ever tried hitting something, so if we take a hammer like this, it's going to draw a not so good looking hammer, but you can imagine some people, sometimes when they're trying to hit a nail with a hammer, maybe they hit it incorrectly. So maybe they swing and they miss it, or they hit maybe like the side of it. Sometimes you've seen people like they bend the head of the nail because they don't hit the nail right on the head. Okay, so you might hit it, or you might miss it completely, or maybe like if you don't hit it properly, you bend the nail like that, and then you have to maybe hit this back up. And so the whole point is to perform something perfectly, and this is when we talk about hitting it right here, right on the middle of the head, and that's when the nail goes smoothly into some wood or whatever you're nailing into. So to hit the nail on the head, we're talking about the head of the nail. We're not talking about like hitting a nail onto your head. All right. Now, another Eunice just said, okay, now I understand the origin of you nailed it. Yes. So another thing, the same idea about nailing something, like to hit something correctly. So you nailed it. This is another expression of praise. Congratulations. You did it. You nailed it. All right. So you often hear this in sports. Maybe someone is doing like where someone's doing gymnastics and they're flipping around or something, and they do the landing perfectly and they don't fall over. Oh, they nailed it. They nailed the landing. So you can nail something just in the same way that you're hitting a nail, and that means doing it well. All right. So very simple. So once you understand it like this, again, you might hear something like this, but really try to think about why. So what's actually happening here? Even if you don't understand the vocabulary by looking at the words, you should still say, okay, I guess when someone is being praised, or we're congratulating something, or someone did a good job, this is a way of expressing that. So a way of expressing praise. But as you go a little bit deeper, you think about what the origin might be. So this is something you can do by yourself, or if you're learning with someone like me. So this is the kind of thing we do in Fluent for Life, where we help people understand the language like a native. Okay? So hopefully you understand this. But the point is, instead of trying to look at the vocabulary and then translate it back into your native language, we don't want to do that. We want to think about why or what situation, when did somebody say something? Okay, and then try to understand, well, what is the origin of the word, okay? So typically an idiom like this has some kind of origin story, and it just makes a more interesting way of expressing something. So it's fine to say you did a great job, you did it perfectly, or something like that, but you really hit the nail on the head. So this is just one way of expressing this idea. Okay, there are many, many others, but I just wanted to focus on this. Nice and easy to understand. And again, Eunice gave that other example of you nailed it. That's another perfect example. You nailed it. All right. I think someone, who was that? Was that Lewis just said bring the hammer down. So to bring the hammer down, it usually means like to bring some kind of force or some kind of like now like the kids are being loud in your house or something. So the situation is somebody is causing trouble, but I'm not doing anything about it yet. But now I'm getting very angry, and so I'm going to bring the hammer down. Like, okay, the party is over. Now I'm going to like stop people from doing something. To bring the hammer down. But it's interesting as you start looking at these other meanings of words or idioms appear. Isn't that interesting? All right, so if you have any questions about specific idioms as I go through, let me know, but let's just go through the list. All right, but we'll be following this same format of trying to understand the situation and then looking at the vocabulary and then understanding the origin of that thing. So pretty simple formula for understanding these things like a native. All right, next thing. All right, you're at a store. Let's imagine you're at a store and you want to buy, let's say, a new bicycle. So here's my new bicycle. And I say, okay, I want to buy this bicycle. I think maybe the price tag, let's see, I'm going to draw a little price tag on this. So the price tag will be, let's say, $200. Let's say it's $200. So I think it will be $200, but I look at the actual price tag and oh my goodness, it's like $2 million. Or what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, it's like $2 million. So I look at this and say, oh my God, that's $2 million. So I think something is very expensive. Okay, so I want to express the idea, the situation is something is very expensive. And there are many ways to express this, but one idiom we will look at is to cost an arm and a leg. To cost an arm and a leg. So if I look at a price like this and I say, wow, that's really expensive, okay? But a more kind of interesting or native or natural or expressive way of saying, oh, that's really expensive is it costs an arm and a leg. Now, this means like if we have a body over here, I'm not going to draw this very well like usual, but so something is so expensive that we actually have to like cut off our own arm and a leg to pay for that thing. So it means it's costing us so much we're actually having to like sell our arm and our leg to pay for that thing. Okay, so that's the basic idea. It costs an arm and a leg, all right? Now, if you think about something like this, like other things, like maybe something, we don't really say like it costs you 2 arms and 2 legs or whatever, but the basic idea is that it's something so expensive that like, wow, I don't even, it's not even worth me paying for it because I would have to lose my arm and a leg to pay for that. So I could buy a $2 million bicycle, but that's really costing me an arm and a leg. Okay, so it's probably more trouble than it's worth. And if you spend a little bit of time thinking about it, again, we start with the situation, then we get the vocabulary. Okay, to cost an arm and a leg. All right, we're going through these nice and speedily here. All right, you got it, Drew. All right, so Giles says, when do we use the word caveat? You mean a caveat? I'm hearing it a lot at work. Oh, a caveat just means like there's a condition or something like we all should do something, but the caveat is maybe one of us will die. So there's like a condition or something. It's better to if you just get, since it's not the focus of this video, just Google that. Google like caveat and examples or ask ChatGPT. But the basic idea is that there's like a condition or something else that maybe people should also consider. All right. So maybe something seems good, but there's probably a problem with it in some way. All right. Okay, so very good. Idiom, Portuguese say, custou rim. Kidney. Oh, I guess like it cost you a kidney. In Hindi, the same idioms. Yep. So I'm guessing, yeah. And so like there are lots of idioms in different vocabulary or different languages. But the important thing is not to try to translate it, but rather to understand when people say these things. And often, like, humans have the same experience in many different places. So seeing something very expensive for somebody, like, that's a universal thing. Like, people will say, like, no, that's too expensive for me or whatever. Like, that costs an arm and a leg. Okay, so it's relative. Maybe some people see a $2 million bicycle and they think that's cheap. Maybe some people do. But other people might think it costs an arm and a leg. All right, Kendall says, glad to see you. Persian says, it costs someone's blood, I guess. Wow. All right, put a sock in a hole, water, bury the hatchet. Yeah, so we're not trying to cover like every idiom in this video, but the whole point is understanding idioms like a native. That's really the point of this video. So you can do this by yourself or to get help from someone like me in what we do in Fluent for Life. All right, Ariel says, the way you are talking to us right now, it's the same that you would always talk with everybody to communicate in a native way with your friends. Somewhat. So I'm using a lot of the same words I would use, but I'm speaking, this is my like teaching way of speaking. All right. So what we do in Fluent for Life is we're trying to help you understand this. So I want to help you understand the language, but then you see lots of examples of how I really speak with other native speakers, okay, or how other natives are talking to each other. Okay, so a lot of native speech, you will find idioms, a lot of phrasal verbs, movie quotes, or other things. That it's not just about using the vocabulary. People want to make a connection with other people. And so if I know about a movie and I know you know about that movie, then I can use a movie quote to demonstrate something, and that makes a connection between us. Okay, so that's a higher level than just understanding the vocabulary kind of like this. All right, so this is important to understand, but to get to that native level of a native way of speaking and being able to understand natives, that's where we need like a lot more training, all right? But this is, again, what we do in Fluent for Life. So really the purpose of videos like this that I do on YouTube is to help you understand how you should be learning. So either you're doing it by yourself or you're getting some help, but this is how you should be doing it. So learning English as a first language, understanding the language the same way a native would, rather than trying to translate things, okay? Let's move along. So this is another one. I also thought about doing this video because this was a question we got from a Fluent for Life member. And so this was asking about the idiom. I'll give the idiom in just a moment, but let me talk about the situation first. So a friend of mine asks me, hey, do you know any good restaurants in like some area? And I say, well, like off the top of my head, I can't really. Let's see. There's a good like Mexican restaurant up that street. All right. So off the top of my head, I'm just thinking about something right now. Off the top. Oops. Off the top of my head. Off the top of my head. So when I'm thinking, the situation is I want to give a quick response. I'm not thinking very deeply about that. And if you can imagine somebody's head over here. So we got kind of the brain up here. And you can think about it in a physical way, like some idea up here at the top of your head. You don't need to think very hard. You're just very quickly like, oh, okay. So yes, I am just giving you a very quick response. So down here, we might have a deeper idea. If you give me some more time, then I can think about, oh, here's another restaurant that's also really good, but I didn't think of that, okay? So off the top of my head is a very commonly used phrase. You'll hear this a lot in business when people need to give maybe some explanation very quickly, but maybe they could give a better explanation if they had more time. So they will say, this is kind of like a warning where you're telling people, yes, I will explain something, but it's not probably the best explanation, okay? So if my boss comes to me and he says, why are sales down this month? And I might say, well, off the top of my head, we're trying to think about, I don't know, like sales or marketing or something, so I don't really have a good response for him. But so I say off the top of my head, here's a very quick response. Maybe I don't know for sure, but I could give a better response or a more detailed or in-depth response if I had more time to think. So this is when we're talking about, it's almost like reaching into your head and grabbing some quick response. Okay, so here's something superficial, maybe not very well thought out. I'm just thinking of it quickly without thinking of it at all. Okay, off the top of my head. Okay, so we don't say like off the bottom of my head. We don't use that expression, but you can think about this idea of ideas that are easy to grab very quickly are just on the top of your head. Okay, so like off the top of my head, this is what I think. Okay, off the top of my head. All right, let me go back, check chat, make sure we're moving along here. Let's see, Lewis says, I don't think so. Talking between two natives, the rhythm is different contractions. Yes. Please use this idiom in two different sentences, off the top of my head. So if a friend of mine, again, is asking me about like restaurant recommendations, I might say, oh, he's like, I need a recommendation for a restaurant in 10 minutes. And I say, oh, well, off the top of my head, there are two restaurants near you that are pretty good. Okay, so off the top of my head. So right now, if I have to give you an answer quickly, then here is a quick answer. It's probably not the best one, but it's okay. Okay, so off the top of my head. Or if my boss is asking me for things, that's another example. Or if my wife says like, where would you, I don't know, like to go for vacation? Like we need to choose right now. So I say, okay, well, off the top of my head, let's go to, I don't know, Hawaii or whatever. So I'm just thinking of something very quickly. I'm not putting any thought into it. And if I had more time, I could come up with something different. But understand the situation. You're trying to give a response without thinking, and this is a way of expressing that. Okay. Ordo, nice to see you there. All right, let's continue. Moving along. All right. This is another good one. We'll begin with the situation as usual. See, I'm tempted to write it down first, but I always want to give you the situation first. So let's say I see some like delicious food or something. This is going to be a very simple example, but I see like a really delicious sandwich. We're going to imagine it's like a big, I don't know, burger with many layers on it, you know, interesting burger like that. And I'm just like, I try to bite into this whole thing and I get this whole piece, but it's so much food in my mouth that I can't chew it. Okay, so it's just a really big bite of this thing. I was so excited to eat it. So I bit off, or if we're talking about the present, to bite off more than you can chew. To bite off more than you can chew. To bite off more than you can chew. So this is a physical example, understanding the origin of something like this, where I bite off, like I'm taking something like a physical burger like this with like a lot of layers on it, and I bite off more than I can chew. So I take a piece of that thing and, well, it's too big and I can't chew it. Okay, so this is the idea of this, but we can think about using this also in lots of situations where like I'm going and I start a new job where I have to work as a teacher in a school, and there are 100 kids in the classroom. And none of them want to sit down and listen to me. And so like, oh, wow, like I told people I could do that I could go into a classroom and manage a classroom of 100 little kids. But I think I bit off more than I can chew. All right, I bit off more than I can chew. So I did something, I thought I could handle that thing, but I actually couldn't. All right, so that's the situation. I'm in a situation where like my boss says, hey, I have this new project I'd like you to manage. And I say, okay, I think I can handle that thing. And it's way too much. It's overwhelming for me. I bit off more than I could chew. Okay, so for this one, you will hear like can and also could, like if you're talking about the past. So I bit off more than I could chew. All right, I bit off more than I could chew. All right, hopefully that makes sense. So to bite off more than you can chew means you're in a situation where something is overwhelming for you, or you're you're unable to handle something for it. Bridget says, yes, another, like in this same situation, again, there are many ways we might express that. So another one is your eyes are bigger than your stomach. Okay. Now that one particularly, it's really used for talking about food, like you order too much food, but you could use it in other situations as well. But bite off more than you can chew is more commonly used in way more situations. So it's the same kind of idea where you're being overwhelmed by something, so you thought you could do it, but you actually can't. All right. So same idea. So your eyes are bigger than your eyes are like bigger than, what did you specific? Yeah, like your eyes are bigger than your like stomach or whatever. There are different ways you could express it, but yeah, so that's typically more for food. But you could use it for other situations like that, like at work, but typically bite off more than you can chew is more commonly used. All right. I think people are getting it though. All right, not my cup of tea. Yes, people are just putting random idioms in there. All right, let's see. Lou says, you don't think a lot. It's quickly answer. Usually a piece of cake. Yes, if you're talking about that different kind of sentence at all. Yeah. So like a piece of cake means to do something easily. It's not about like performing something quickly. I guess you could do something well if you do it quickly, but a piece of cake just means you're able to do it well because it's easy for you to do. All right. So we always want to understand the situation first. You see someone, like one person is able to like erase the board, and they do it. It's like like they erased it very well, very easily, very quickly. I say, wow, like it's really hard for me to erase the board for some reason. But for you, it's a piece of cake. So it's just very easy to do. All right, moving on. Let's see how many of these we get through. We're at 31 minutes already. Keep the party going over here. All right, next one. Let's say I have a problem. So again, we begin with the situation. So I'm talking with a friend of mine about a problem, and maybe I don't know if I should quit my job and move to another city, or if I should keep my job and maybe, I don't know, work harder and get a raise or something like that. So I have a choice. There's some kind of problem I have, but I don't want to deal with it right now. So I'm going to maybe like delay that or do something else, and I will think about that problem later. And a lot of people do this. So this is a common situation where people don't like making especially big decisions. So where we have to choose something that could be a big impact on our life or our family, and we think, well, I'll not deal with it now, I'll deal with it later. And so the idea of that is to kick. So kick the can down the road. To kick the can down the road. So if you imagine yourself, you're walking, and sometimes if you see a little rock or an actual can on like some garbage or something like that, you might kick it just for fun. But this is the same idea of you're kind of kicking something down the road, but you will keep walking and you will have to meet that thing again. All right. So even if you have a problem, which is like the can in this case, you're just kicking it down the road. So you often hear this problem or this idea talked about in government or business as well. So in government, like maybe they don't want to have I don't know, what's a good example? Like there's like a law that people want to pass, and maybe it will cause trouble for people in the future. So they're taking something and they're deciding, well, we're going to change some law that hurts people, like young people, in the future. So the people right now don't have to deal with the problem, but the people in the future will. So the government is kicking the can down the road, and someone will have to deal with that problem then. So you have to confront the problem at some point, but you don't do it now. You are kicking the can down the road. All right? So always understand the situation first, and then you can think, oh, there might actually be other ways to express this, but this is typically a way that people would express this situation. So there's a problem, you want to deal with it, but maybe you'll deal with it later. All right, so to kick a can down the road over here. All right, let's see, how to handle the eye contact on my boss. That time I can't explain about that. If you're, well, this is just like the electric sorts asks about that. So if your boss is asking you a question and you don't have a good answer, I would direct his attention to something else. So I would say, if he's looking at me, I would say, oh, look at this, and try to draw something, or here's like a chart or something like that. If you're worried about the eye contact, that's how you would do it. Incidentally, that's also like a good thing for like going on a date with someone. So if let's say you go on a first date, you meet someone, it's much better to try to find something you can do rather than just like sit across from each other at a table. Because if you don't talk very well, that could be an awkward situation. But if you go somewhere and do something, like you're looking at something else together, so it's a little less awkward, and maybe you can develop a better relationship in that way. So find something else to look at. Yes, TJ, please guys like the video so more people can see it. Yes. All right, ghost character can kick the can. That's true. Sita is back, the manager. Yes. a lot of likes. Very good. All right, next up. All right. Oh, this is another good one. So we just talked about an example where there's a problem you have and you're going to deal with it later, but sometimes you have two problems and you don't know what you do. Like either way, you're going to have some kind of problem. So you can think about this, like here is like you, actually I should draw probably a sad face on that. Oh no, so the person is not in a very good mood because they have kind of two problems, and we typically say like you're caught between like a rock and a hard place. So a hard place, we're talking about something difficult, so the rock, like you can't get around that thing. So this is to be caught. C-A-U-G-H-T, between a rock and a hard place. To be caught between a rock and a hard place. So in this case, like hard just means difficult, like a rock is also hard, probably. So it sounds like it's kind of a funny expression. I guess you could actually be between two rocks. But the point is you have some situation where if you can't go that way and you can't go that way either. So you're stuck. So like if I quit my job, then maybe I will also not have enough money to feed my family, but I hate my job also. Okay, so some people, they don't like what they do, but they have to keep doing it because they don't have a different option or something. They are caught between a rock and a hard place. Okay, now typically you could just say something simple like I feel stuck or I feel trapped. It's the same idea, but you will hear this longer expression, to be caught, like I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. And often when people use idioms like this, you will hear natives kind of express an idea, and then they're kind of repeating themselves. Because typically if I only say this, I talk to my friend and I begin a conversation this way, and I say, hey, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. Now, he understands, my friend understands the situation. There's something like this where I can't do this thing and I can't do that thing, or there will be a problem either way. So this is what it means to be caught between a rock and a hard place. But then I would have to explain what that means. All right, so what specifically am I talking about? So if I say this, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place, I still have to explain what that situation actually is. Okay, so the person knows that I'm in some kind of trouble, but then they want to know, well, what's the problem? Okay, so then I will explain, well, it's work, or my wife, or my kids, or I have a medical problem, or something like that. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. So often when we use idioms like this, like you will, especially a longer phrase in this way, you will hear either like before or after you can use this. So you can tell your friend first that you have a problem, I have a problem at work, and then you kind of add this to just make it sound a bit more native. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. So it's describing how you feel about being in this situation, to be caught between a rock and a hard place. All right. All right, let's keep moving. This is nice. I just want to make sure, I have to check chat, make sure the video doesn't just like freeze or something on me. But is everybody getting this? Are these becoming more clear if you didn't know them already, or even if you did? Are you feeling more confident about them? So the whole point of this, by understanding it more like a native, you should feel, oh, I'm understanding it now. So you should start feeling more confident about saying these things. All right, next up, let's see. Oh, there's another good one. Let's say, so the situation, again, is I'm like working really hard on a project. Let's say I stay up very late, so I'm staying up until like 3 in the morning. So I don't get much sleep, and then I wake up at 5 to keep working on that project. Okay, so I'm working very hard. I'm kind of overwhelming myself. I probably should get some sleep, but I really need to do that thing. So this is the situation. All right. So I'm describing this to someone, and they say to me, wow, you are really to burn. They would say like you are burning or what, but I'll just give you the actual idiom here, to burn. Burn the candle at both ends. To burn the candle at both ends. So the idea of this, if we look at a regular candle, so here's a candle with a little flame on that. A regular candle burns this way, and it burns pretty slowly because it's just burning here. So this is one end of the candle. But we could imagine another candle like this that has two ends, so both ends have the flame on it like that. And we can imagine this would burn twice as fast. Okay, so 2 times faster. So if you're working normally, you're just kind of burning a candle. We don't use that as an expression, but from this idea, we get this one. So we're burning the candle at both ends. So if I'm working really hard, I'm staying up really late, and I'm waking up very early, I only get 2 hours of sleep in here, if I get any sleep at all. I'm working very hard, and you can feel like I look very tired, and I'm not very happy about whatever. I'm working very hard. I'm burning the candle at both ends. Burning the candle at both ends. So this is typically used for like business situations where people are talking about how hard they're working, or a school student. Maybe they're working on some project or a paper they have to write for a class. And so that's how we have that. Oh, I'm burning the candle at both ends. Louis says, use the paper. Well, you'd say toilet paper, not a paper toilet. Hopefully you don't. If a paper toilet would mean a toilet that's made out of paper. And you probably don't want that, but that would be pretty funny. So yes, like toilet paper is the paper we use for toilets. But yes, so burning the candle at both ends, it means you're working, you're kind of overworking yourself, you're stretching yourself out, or too thin, I would say. All right, we'll keep going. Look at that, we're moving quickly though. So I think we've done 7 of these so far, if I didn't skip anything. Yep. But pretty easy. Seems like people don't have many questions about these, which is nice. All right, glad to hear people are understanding this. All right, let's see. Electric Sort says, we have big team as leaders. Sometime my mind, something missing words I can't explain. Yes, so this is a typical thing that happens to many English learners, if that's what you're talking about, like you want to say something but you're not able to express it. But if you start understanding English more like a native speaker, you start learning English as a first language and understanding it like a native rather than as a learner through a typical like second language explanation, then you will understand the language better. And that's how you will become more confident and fluent. So remember, you don't need to spend a lot of time practicing with other people, and practicing just means repeating things you already know. It's much better to get lots of good explanations or good examples from people using the language. So when you understand the language, you feel confident, and that's when you speak. Okay? All right, moving on to our next example. Make sure we have, let's see, Cynthia says, yes, pretty clean and well explained. Thanks, glad to hear it. And Stephen says, hello from Kenya. And we got, let's see, George from Mexico. All right. Next example. So we have our situation over here. The situation is I'm doing something, but like let's say I'm making a recipe for for some food that I sell. So usually I use like the best, finest ingredients, and I spend a little bit more money to do that. But today, like maybe I don't have so much money, so I'm going to get some lower quality ingredients, and maybe people won't care. But actually, some people notice it. But in this case, like I'm doing something when I'm talking about making something, like making some food, and I'm not doing it very well. So I'm not doing it as well as I could be doing it. And in this expression, we just call this cutting corners. Now, this is a very simple idiom, a way of expressing this idea of doing something that you should be doing, but you're not doing it very well. And the idea comes from, you can imagine somebody walking over here. Here's like a sidewalk. So here's like the street over here. Here's the sidewalk, and here's some grass. People will typically walk down this way, and instead of walking here, like the correct way to walk is down here, and you walk that way, but you decide, no, I'm just going to cut this corner and just walk across the grass over here. To cut corners. So you might, let's say this is someone's house, so they have a grass lawn over here. People, if you don't have a fence or something like that, then people will cut this corner usually. So cutting corners is any time you're trying to do something and you don't want to maybe put in the work. So it's more work. It takes more time to walk this whole way. All right. And when you're cutting corners on things, it might not be that big of a deal. Like for you walking on some grass, but lots of people walking on this grass will kill the grass on this this section of this area, unless it's a park or something like that. But when people talk about cutting corners, so you could cut corners at work, you could cut corners at school. It's just any time you're doing something where you should be doing this, but you're going to do it at a lower level or intentionally not do it very well because you're trying to save time or energy to cut corners. Okay. So this is different from if you talk about like cutting costs. You can cut costs on things that maybe you don't need. But when you cut corners, you're actually doing something that will hurt the situation somehow. And it might not hurt you now. Maybe you're like kicking the can down the road a little bit, where a problem will happen. It will come again later, but you will have to deal with it at some point. But cutting corners in general just means to take something like this. We're going to cut this corner over here, and I don't really care so much about it, or I'm just trying to save myself some time. But it's probably causing some kind of trouble or harm to someone. Okay? Yeah, so you could be cutting corners like to finish something again, but it usually is lowering the quality of that thing. So you're doing something less well, like I get, I don't know, like lower quality markers or lower quality microphone to try to save money or something like that. Like I'm cutting corners on things. Okay, so if you're talking about cutting corners on something. So this restaurant I like, they stop using this really good ingredient, like good eggs or something like that. I notice, oh, like the food tastes worse. So I notice they're cutting corners on ingredients. Okay, so cutting corners on something. Let's see. All right, so this is, hi Drew, can you explain what is the difference between even though and even if? I'm not going to do that in this video, but I've covered that. If you search for the channel, you should be able to find content about that. Steven says, any software engineer here? Okay, you guys are talking with each other. Hello, sir, good morning. From Malaysia, I'm single father for 3 young kids. Well, welcome. Cutting corners. Okay, you guys got that already. All right, see, I don't like cutting corners. Like often cutting corners in language learning just means that you're trying to give someone like a translation, and you notice it takes a little bit more time to get a really good understanding of something. But if you get a good understanding, it's much faster actually in the long run than learning the traditional way. So actually, if you're learning the traditional way, like through translations, you're kicking the can down the road where like you're kind of learning things, but you won't be able to use that fluently. Okay, so it's better just solve the problem, understand what's happening, and then you will feel more confident when you speak. All right. Let's see. Okay, you guys are speaking with each other. Glad to hear. So Stephen says, what is the meaning of shortcut? Yeah, shortcut is in a similar way where like maybe you're crossing something like there, or it's just a faster way to do it, but it's typically not like hurtful. You know, it's not going to harm you in some way or harm other people. It's just a faster way of doing something, a shortcut. And it might actually help you. But so cutting corners is more of a negative idea of you're not doing something you should do, and that's probably going to hurt you some way, okay? So I could do like a learning shortcut. It's actually going to benefit people rather than hurting them. But if I cut corners as a teacher, so I'm trying to help you learn, I'm just like, okay, here's this vocabulary and that's what it means. And here's this vocabulary and that's what it means. I'm cutting corners in actually helping you understand, because the job of the teacher is to make the language understandable so you feel confident about speaking. Okay? So good question though. Let's see. Hey there, Joseph Ildar. Nice to see you there. Have you watched Eurovision? No, I have not. All right. I think we have 2 more. Look at that. We're working through only 50 minutes. All right. Next one. So let's say I am walking down the street and I don't know. I happen to notice some very attractive lady. You know, just I'm walking down the street and I see, oh, like, you know, I wasn't thinking about that lady, but it's like I see her and like, oh, like she got my attention right there. So we use a very simple idiom to talk about this, to catch someone's eye. To catch someone's eye. So you can think about it. It's like she reached out and grabbed me and is like, like I'm looking this way and I kind of notice her and like, oh, like she caught my eye. She caught my eye. Now we use typically talking about eye because you only need to kind of catch one of them. We don't use the expression catch someone's eyes. We don't use the plural for this. We just say she caught my eye, or to catch someone's eye. So you would use this like the girl caught his eye. Or the guy caught, you know, like that car caught my eye. Or that $2 million bicycle caught my eye. Or that this ambulance is like catching my ear over here. It's kind of a joking way of using the language, although people don't use that. But you could, and logically you would be able to say that. But this is a common phrase, to catch someone's eye. To catch someone's eye. All right? Yes, so we can say like to catch someone's attention, but I wanted to give something that's even simpler, just easier to understand, and remember to catch someone's eye. So yes, it's also at the same time you're catching someone's attention, okay? And now, yes, so Among Us episode, I like that name. So if you catch someone's eye, so maybe I kind of noticed something caught my eye, but now it is keeping my attention. So if I'm still looking at it, so it's keeping my attention. So that's probably a bad idea. Like if I'm walking down the street, let's say my wife is with me and I'm walking and some like, I don't know, lovely lady catches my eye. I'm just like, oh, you know, but then I don't want to keep looking and staring at somebody. That would be a little bit mean, you know. And so I might, you know, I would keep walking. But I remember there was a comedian years ago, and he was. This is kind of related to this, but he is explaining. Here's how to look at women. If you like, let's say if you're out walking with your wife or your girlfriend or something, and you see like some woman catches your eye, but you actually want to look at that woman, you would say like, oh my, like look at that woman over there. Can you believe she's dressed like that? So you actually get your like wife or girlfriend to look at that woman too. That was his advice. Anyway, so that is to catch someone's eye. All right. So yes, you can also say to catch someone's attention, but to catch someone's eye. All right, and the last one, good one to end on. In this example, our situation over here is that maybe I'm in a fight or I'm trying to do something, I'm being very overwhelmed by that thing, and it's very difficult for me, and I just decide I quit. I quit. So when I give up, a very common way of expressing this is to throw in the towel. To throw in the towel. Now, this idea comes from boxing. I guess it could come from like wrestling too or whatever, but you imagine a boxing ring over here. We have two boxers, and one guy gets knocked out, so he's lying down on the ground. And usually they have like a manager on each side of the boxing ring, and the manager will take a towel, like physically, here's a towel. So he actually physically throws his towel into the ring like that, to throw in the towel. And that means, okay, we give up. We give up or we quit. So the phrasal verb to give up means, okay, I'm going to accept defeat. I lose. Okay, or to quit. So if something, any kind of thing, it doesn't, obviously you can see how this comes from boxing. That's a physical thing where we actually throw in the towel, but you can throw in the towel for anything. So going back to my example before, I'm trying to be a teacher in, when I go to a classroom and I say, hey, I can be a teacher in this class of little kids. There are 100 kids running around. I don't have much experience, but I will try my best or whatever. But I fail, and I quit. I give up. I throw in the towel. Throw in the towel. All right, so any of these things are fine. You can say I quit or I give up, but this is just a more casual conversational way that shows that you understand the language the same way a native does. Okay, so remember, we're throwing in the towel. So the manager is on the outside of the ring. He throws the towel inside like that to throw in the towel. Okay, to throw in the towel. All right. All right, let me check chat. Make sure everybody's following. Let's see. Atomic says give in. So give in is a different phrasal verb with a different meaning. Give in. Whoops, excuse me. Give. I wrote given. Give in. Now, to give in to something means to accept that thing. Like, let's say I'm walking down the street, and again I see the lovely lady with the beautiful dress on or whatever, and I give in to temptation and I walk over and talk to her instead of staying with my wife or girlfriend. All right, so I'm giving in to something. It means I'm kind of accepting like something that is pulling me. All right, so if I see some delicious cookies sitting on the counter at home, and I know I shouldn't eat them, but I want a cookie, so I give in and eat a cookie. So I accept that thing. It's quitting in a way, but it's a very specific thing where you're talking about accepting like something that's pulling you in some way. All right, so the cookies are pulling you, or the beautiful woman, or whatever, anything where you accept that thing, you give in to that thing. So you give in to pressure, like other people, like, go on, Drew, you should do it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And they go ahead. And I say, okay, fine, I give in. Yes, so Canero says surrender. All right. But I'm trying to explain it so you understand the situation rather than just get a definition of it. But yes, you're accepting something. You're surrendering to that thing. Okay. All right, make sure we got everybody. Cynthia says, that's great. I never understood why it was throwing in the towel. Great info. Yes, and so as you understand the language better, you feel more confident about speaking. Isn't that interesting? So you don't become more confident by repeating the phrase again and again. To throw in the towel, to throw in the towel, to throw in the towel. But when you think like, oh, look at that, like the manager is throwing in the towel, and that is like a sign for quitting. We give up. Okay, throw in the towel. So if I'm at work, I have an overwhelming project, or the school example where I'm talking with the principal, I say, okay, I give up. I throw in the towel. I can't watch a class of 100 children by myself. Okay, so I give up. I throw in the towel. All right, Ilda says, we'll never surrender. That's right. All right, let's see. PGT says, we all really glad to having Drew here. Please put some jokes while I explain to us, Drew. It will be more fun. Some more jokes. Well, I guess I could put some more jokes in there if I think of any. I don't really know a lot of jokes, actually. I mean, I try to be entertaining, like say something if I think about it, but I don't really know a lot of jokes. Do you want to know? I'll tell you. Do you want to hear my? It's not my joke, but like one of the 3 jokes that I know. If a bunch of people tell me yes, Drew, tell me the joke, I will tell you the joke. All right. Do you have classes for intermediate level students, says Katie? Yes. So this is what Fluent for Life is. So if you enjoy these explanations and you would like to learn a lot more, not only vocabulary, but also seeing how natives are using these things, and you really become a confident speaker because we help you understand the language so well, that's what we do in Fluent for Life. So it's for intermediate and advanced speakers who know a lot of English, but still don't speak. And typically the reason they don't is because they still have doubts about the language. So we eliminate the doubt, and that's what still stops you from speaking, so you start speaking. So very easy to understand. Let's see. So in Spanish it says tirar la toalla. Oh, I mean, is that towel? I guess maybe it's the same thing. Yeah, so if you would have boxing, same kind of thing. Lily says, do I teach writing? Not specifically, but if you'd like to get better at writing, just look for people who write well and copy that writing. So you get actually write it out by hand. So you get a good sense for how to write. Adriana from Brazil, Jean-Claude, hello over there, says hi. And let's see, Oladejo or Dejo from Nigeria, Brazil. Drew, when will you have an offer for your programs? Well, if you're talking about like an offer, you mean like for Fluent for Life or whatever? I don't know, maybe in a couple of months or something. Maybe we'll do like a Black Friday thing, maybe. But you never know. If you're on our list, maybe you will get an offer from us. So Cynthia says, yes, please tell me the joke. All right, Fabio, hi, Drew. Nice to see you there. Nicholas says, hi from Dominican Republic. Hello, good evening. Well, we only got one person to hear the joke, so maybe I will save the joke for another time. It's not even really that funny of a joke. But again, like I'm not very good with just like remembering jokes. I enjoy jokes a lot, so if I hear them, but it's just jokes, and I'm kind of a silly person in general, but. But hopefully everybody gets the idea here when especially if you're trying to learn a language by yourself. We don't want to just begin with the vocabulary. You might hear something, but you should stop and think, okay, wait a minute, I heard this, but what's happening? What is the situation? Why did someone say that? So what is happening here, and why did someone say this thing? And even if you don't understand the whole thing, especially idioms, they can look confusing, but they're actually not if you understand the origin of these things. So that's what we're doing in this video. But again, the whole point is to get some vocabulary, and rather than quickly try to translate that thing, just spend a moment and think, oh, like someone did something well, or some other situation where they have I don't know, like they did a bad thing, or maybe they're upset about something, and then they use this. This is how children learn the language. This is how you learned your native language. And so if you learn English the same way, then you will become a much more confident speaker. All right, see if anybody has any final questions over there. Hello, good evening, says Sergio. What's the difference between real and apparent? Well, those could be two different things. I mean, it depends on the situation, as I often say. So we always begin with the situation. Something might be, something is actually real, like maybe this is like the reality is this is an eraser, but apparently it's like actually something else, or I might see it in a different way. But I recommend you get more examples of that rather than me continuing giving a bunch of examples. But I would find a bunch of examples, like either through ChatGPT, whenever you have vocabulary like that. And often I try to answer questions where I think it might be difficult for you to get a good explanation from like ChatGPT or Google or whatever. All right, let's see a couple more here. Nils says, Annette says, yes, please. Carmela, a man from Canary Islands, writing from Ecuador. Some advice for essays. Well, I focus on, I would go, like there are lots of YouTube channels, I'm sure, that talk about that. Jeter le tablier. In French, throw the towel. Please provide your live calendar. I don't have a calendar for this because sometimes I don't do these on a schedule, but typically it's Monday and Thursday during the week, but that schedule might not be like the same all the time. So like I thought I would do a video this Monday, this week, but I did not. All right, so you want to hear the joke. Can I be fluent to the point where I can't even tell if I'm American or not? Is it possible? Yeah, sure. It just depends on how you learn. Did you over the girls who floor the bottle in the window? I don't know what that means. All right, first time catching you live. Glad I did. When are these usually? Again, they are Mondays and Thursdays, Japan time. Oladeo says, I can construct English sentences perfectly, but I can speak fluent. Do you mean you cannot? Please, how can I go about this? Again, the basic idea is that if you have doubts about your English, that's what's going to stop you from speaking. And so people typically have doubts because they're learning a language as a second language rather than as a first language. And so when you have those issues, that's what will cause you to not speak. Okay, so you can know the language and understand it, but not understand it well enough to actually communicate with people. Okay, so even like people say, oh, I understand what you're saying, but you can still have doubts that stop you from speaking. Let's see, how often do you use the idioms you presented, Drew, or are you actually using them or not? Actually, that's a good question, but yes, like I will use idioms sometimes. The way I speak, like normally as like a native fluent speaker, depends on the person I'm speaking with. So if I know someone knows a lot about movies, I will use more idioms or quotes or something like that from movies, because the point of the communication is actually to connect with that person. Okay, so that's why when I'm speaking with people that maybe don't know as much, I'm going to lower my speed. I'm going to speak more clearly. I'm tailoring my speech to the people I'm speaking with. And so that's the same if I'm speaking with natives as well. So let's say I'm speaking with like a native speaker, but it's a grandmother who can't hear very well. I'm going to speak more slowly and probably not use a lot of movie quotes or things that maybe she might not know. All right. We have a lesson set about this in Fluent for Life about generations and talking, like learning the vocabulary if you spend a lot of time talking with older people, then you should watch movies from that era where they were young and like they would know that, because if you can making a connection with someone, that's even more important than just using the language well. So I can, like when I was first in Japan and couldn't speak very well, I'm just trying to understand things through situations. Once I understood like how to learn Japanese the right way, but I would have like just situations where I could say something and I could actually connect with the person well because I used something that they knew that they didn't expect maybe I would know. So like an example, so I remember like my first year in Japan where I couldn't speak very well at all. We had a teacher come to a new teacher come to the school, and I was a new teacher there, and I still couldn't speak very well. And I was talking to actually some Japanese students. It was at a junior high school, and he came over to us. I was kind of visiting his gym class. And he just said something very quickly to me in Japanese that I couldn't understand. And he was kind of trying to embarrass me a little bit in front of these, like I think it was just like a group of students. And very quickly I just said like a tongue twister that I knew in Japanese. And so it had nothing to do with what he said, but he was kind of impressed by I was able to come back with just like something that was able to make a connection in that sentence. So that's kind of a long way of explaining that. It's like a higher level. We talk like about like this kind of thing, these kinds of things in Fluent for Life. But yeah, he was quite impressed, and the kids were also like, because they understood what was happening. I was having a conversation. He walks over and he was like, blah 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 blah. I don't really remember exactly what he said, but I was just like, niwa 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 tori ga iru. I just said it like very quickly, which is a Japanese tongue twister for there are two chickens in the yard. Niwa 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 tori ga iru. Anyway, and I don't even remember if I said it very well, but because that was many years ago. That was like 20 years ago now. But anyway, it was impressive at the time, not because I like responded well, but I was able to make a connection with that person. All right, let's see, before we get too many more questions. So we've been going for about an hour so far. Let's see, hello teacher, man from Canary. Okay, I got that one. Can you tell me how to use the word sort of? Just Google that. Just Google examples of that. You'll see lots of examples. Again, like the more you can, my job or the best help I can give you is for when you actually don't understand something and you've like already tried to figure that thing out, but you still don't understand why we do something. That's where I can help you. But if you're just looking for like a quick, like something like sort of, you can easily Google that. All right, let's see. Let me see. Okay, out of pocket meaning, same thing. Just Google that. Like easy things like that, just Google it. Same thing with defy. Anybody just asking me meanings of random words, like you could easily Google that. All right, family, did you know about the girl who flew the bottle to the window to see the that kind of joke? I see. She threw a bottle to see a bottle fly. Yeah, that's like a kid joke. Do you have any opinion on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? Yeah, I don't know anything about those. I'm not the person to ask. Amanda says, how are you? Tell me some words in Japanese. I just gave you some. What are you do in Japan? I'm doing it right now. This is what I do. I help people learn English and speak fluently. So I do that with people in Japan too, but I don't have a physical classroom anymore. John Wilson says, hi, Drew. Would you be able to practice real English with English learners over the phone? No, I wouldn't do that because it would be it'd be like incredibly expensive. It would cost you an arm and a leg to do that with me. But the point is, like, you don't become fluent by practicing your English over the phone. You become fluent by really understanding the language well. And so everything that I've already done, like all the lessons, it's all laid out for people in Fluent for Life. So it's also people think that if they have a private teacher that they're going to become fluent. But the problem they find is that speaking with that person might speak in a certain way, or just like the way I'm speaking to you now. People will tailor, they will change, they will alter their speech. And so you might be able to understand that speaker and you might learn a lot of vocabulary, but there's still a whole world of people, especially lots of natives, that don't speak clearly. So you need to get exposure to that English as well. That's how you become a much more confident speaker. So you need to hear lots of English and you need to hear that from different people, not just one person. Keiko says, hello, Teacher Drew. I threw in the towel to join this lesson because I have to go to work. So, is that correct? Yes, so you can just say, like, I'm throwing in the towel for this lesson, like, by you quitting. But again, like, you're not really quitting. I guess you could say that, but yeah, you can just say, osaki ni shitsurei shimasu. Because you're leaving before I'm leaving. It's okay, but no need to be so polite. I wish understand you all you say very soon. Sergio, keep listening, keep practicing. Daniel says, hi, Drew. Do you think it is possible to assimilate entirely to your target language? I feel idioms and some cultural references are very hard to adapt to. It also depends on where people grow up. It's more about how you learn with the language. So what language you learn and how you learn it. And so I could live in a box, but if I'm still getting all the right input, I would become fluent the same way a native does, because they're just getting that same information too. So it's nice if I can speak with other people, but it's not as necessary as people think. So people think you need to spend lots of time practicing, like speaking with other people, but the actual improvement comes when you understand things better. So if you're talking with someone and they say something and you think, oh, like I understand that better. That aha moment that you get when you understand something better, that's how you become a more confident speaker. All right, Jean-Claude, I would like to be in touch with you. Well, you can comment, and there you are. Now you're in touch. Guadalupe doesn't know anything in English, and she asks if you can turn into her an English citizen. Well, I don't know anything about that, unfortunately. I'm reading Sherlock Holmes' book every day for level 2 to 3. It's helpful or not? I don't know. I actually don't recommend books for people learning English. Well, I won't say that. for a lot of people learning, like they might take a novel or something, like you're reading Sherlock Holmes. And the problem with that is that you're not getting enough naturally varied review. So you might hear something, but then forget it later. And you're understanding a novel, but maybe you're not actually feeling more confident about that vocabulary. So some things you will improve with, but it's much better to focus on specific things, understand them really well, and then go on to something else. And as you get better, then a novel and things like that will be better. But you probably will not speak like an author of a book, like Sherlock Holmes. Like you're not going to speak like Sherlock Holmes in the way he speaks just by reading his words. It's just not very likely. All right. Keiko says yes. お先に失礼しますね. All right, Fabiano, you would say, have you ever served in the army? No, I have not. Besides language learning, how do you learn new skills? What's the secret, Drew? Typically, what I've discovered, as a good question, is that you're looking for like a linchpin thing. So a linchpin, or even it's just some like, it's like the actual thing that stops you from doing something. I should spend more time thinking about this before I explain it, but it applies to anything you might learn. So I'll give you the quick example I gave. This is in Fluent for Life, also in the education. I think it's in education and learning, that lesson set. So if you're a member, you can go to that and actually watch me do this. But this is where I was walking not far from where I am right now, and I saw some, I think, high school or college kids, and they had a BMX bike. And so this is a bike where you can do tricks on it. You can spin the handlebar around and try to jump and stand on the bike, that kind of thing. And I was there with a friend of mine, and we had my camera, and so we recorded me. I just said, hey, will you teach me that trick? So I'm trying to learn something, and it was just happened to be like a nice coincidence that we could record that, and we turned that into a lesson in the program about how it worked and how I actually learned this thing. And so there are lots of different pieces of this where you're trying to learn something, whatever it is, like learning a language or learning how to do a trick on a bicycle. And so I watched them, and I was trying to copy what they did. So the trick I was doing was you kind of sit on the bicycle and flip the bike up, so you're on the back wheel, and you turn the handlebar around like that. So the front bar of a BMX bike, you can rotate it all the way around. A regular bike, you can't, usually because there's like brake lines on it, so you can't turn it around. But this one you could. And so they were doing that trick, and I said, oh, could you teach me how to do that? And so they spent maybe 20 minutes trying to show me how to do the trick, and I still couldn't do it because I would flip the bike up and kind of fall off the side of the bike. So I couldn't really do it very well. I could only hold the bike up just a little bit and kind of turn the handlebar just a little bit. And they were kind of thinking, what's the best way to teach me this? But then they gave me like the linchpin. So the linchpin is like, what's the thing that holds it all together that makes it possible? And the linchpin in that example was actually holding the bike with my legs, which I was not doing before. So I was kind of sitting on the bike. If you can imagine, like I was on the bike and my feet are on the handlebars like this, and I'm just kind of like the bike is kind of moving around between my legs. And he was like, well, actually, if you like kind of squeeze the bike a lot with your legs, it's much easier to control the bike. And like very quickly, I was able to do the trick after that. So that when people are trying to teach something, they have to be looking for like the linchpin. What is the kind of one thing there that would stop you if you didn't know about it or if you couldn't do that thing. So if you're trying to learn anything quickly, you want to look for that. And then the way the linchpin is kind of like a small domino. So it's the easiest thing to do. If you push it over, then it knocks over a larger domino, and then the larger one, a larger one. So if you try to push on this domino first, like this could be a very heavy thing, but you can actually push on a very tiny domino here. It knocks these other ones over very easily. So with a very tiny amount of effort, you can do something and move something that's very heavy. Okay, so I was at first when I'm trying to learn how to do this, I was focusing on this kind of thing, like, okay, how do I turn the handlebar or do this other thing? But I should have learned this first. So they didn't think about how to teach me this, and now maybe they understand it better. But I was looking for that thing. So what is the linchpin? What's like the first thing, the easiest thing I could do? So I could try to force myself to do this and practice a lot and really try to do it. But it's much easier if you find like that one thing, the one thing that makes the rest of it possible, and it's much easier to do. So this same idea, the one thing that I discovered about language learning is that doubt is what stops people from getting fluent. All right, so that's what actually stops people from communicating. So a lot of people are, when they're learning, they're trying to push down the big domino over here. The big domino is like, I need to practice speaking a lot. So they try to practice speaking a lot, or they try to study a lot of the language, but they find they still can't speak. And that's because like the actual linchpin thing, the important thing is it's just the doubt that you have. So it's much easier to push this domino down if you eliminate the doubt. Okay, so if you want to learn anything, that's what you should be looking for. I understand how to do this with language learning now, but typically a skill has something like this, where there's like a very tiny piece of that thing where it's very easy to do, and that makes everything else much easier. Okay. I think the chat got kind of quiet there, but let me know if that story makes sense. So whether you're trying to get fluent in a language or you want to do anything else, but that's how you would learn things. And so that's how I try to learn things now. So like rather than thinking about like obvious things like speaking practice, the speaking practice doesn't help you if you still feel doubt. So you can think about like, okay, if I still feel doubt, then I need to go back to the thing that's really stopping me, which is the doubt. And once I clear the doubt, then everything else becomes much easier. Okay. So what I did in this video, I gave you a bunch of what I call fluency triggers, and these are what eliminate the doubt. So somebody commented, maybe that was Cynthia, I think, about not understanding like, oh, why did we throw in a towel? What does that mean? And so the example of that, like when you see how it works, you eliminate the doubt, and now you understand and you can use it fluently. Okay. So that's my quick explanation about how to like learn anything faster and more easily. All right, we'll get through some final questions over here. Is it by listening or by reading can make someone fluent? It's just by understanding. That's the whole point. Tom, nice to see you there. And Alex from China again, nice to see you there. I would like to improve my English skills so that I could become a teacher. This is the reason. Well, there you go. That's how you do it. You must eliminate the doubt by understanding the language very well, and that's when you speak. Daniel says, I think I sound a bit academic or formal because that is how I learn the language. Yeah, that would be a good reason for that. And I have a hard time getting some idioms and local expressions. Yeah, so now you should spend more of your time learning the more kind of casual conversational things that help you speak if you want to sound more like that. Mushtaq says, good evening, or good morning. I missed last two lives, but watched them offline. Glad to hear it. Fabio says, Drew, how is spring in Japan? It's lovely. Spring, if you ever come to Japan, spring and fall are the best times to come because winter is quite cold and summer is quite hot. It's actually ridiculously hot. And so I struggle even just like walking around outside for a minute to do something. I'm just covered with sweat. All right, Deepesh says, I know a lot of good words, but I am still not able to use those words in speaking, even if I truly understand those words. What should I do? Well, I would challenge you about that. Do you really understand those words? So when you think about it, like if there's a word you want to say, but you don't say it, you have to ask yourself why. Am I worried about how it sounds? Do I not know the pronunciation, or I'm not quite sure about the usage of something? So you still have some kind of doubt. Or maybe you just you use it very infrequently and you forget it. But typically it's because people don't know the actual ability to communicate fluently means that you would, even if you forget one word, you can easily use something else. So that happens to me. I forgot some English word, I don't know, and I'm a native speaker. I forget English words all the time. But it's not because I don't know them very well. It's just like maybe I can't think of that word at that moment, but I use something else and can express the same thing. So that's the difference between me, like as a learner, the way I'm learning English as a first language, rather than someone learning English as a second language. So it probably means you don't know that thing as well as you think you do. So and it says, can we please see the video evidence? Yes, this is in Fluent for Life. Again, in the, what was that? What lesson's that? Education and Learning, I think. So that the actual video of me doing this. So like from start to finish. So I didn't know how to do this trick, but now I do. So it's like a pretty cool video about education, but I am talking about this idea. All right, I don't get the difference between therefore and because of. Well, it would depend on the situation, but typically, like, therefore is more like a conclusion of something, like it's like an absolute conclusion. So this thing happens, therefore this other thing happens. So like it's raining on me, therefore I get wet. But you're talking about like this is like this conclusion must happen because that's like the only it's like the only thing that can happen, the only reason for that. But because of it's almost like a softer thing. Like I got wet because it rained. So I'm talking about like the kind of result of that thing, but I'm not saying like definitely if it rains I get wet. So that's a slight difference between therefore and because of. But I would get more examples and you will feel more confident about it. Do you have an app to improve my reading, says Hussein? Yes, so you can click on the link in the description below this video for Frederick, and that will help you with reading and spelling and improving your listening and comprehension and building vocabulary as well. Steven says, practice makes perfect, guys. Let's speak daily in public. Thanks. Now, again, like this is like common knowledge or common advice. Practice makes perfect. But the actual practice that gets you fluent is understanding the language better. Okay. So if I had an hour and I could like spend 1 hour trying to repeat something, like practicing saying something again, or I could get a whole bunch of really good examples that help me understand something well, I would rather do that. Because like the linchpin example, I don't need to spend hours trying to learn how to like turn the bike like the bicycle handle. I just need to know like the one thing that holds it all together. So what's the one simple thing that makes it possible? So some things are less important than others. Okay, so you might think that speaking practice is important, but the reality is that actually no, you have to understand the language better. Because if you don't understand, you won't feel confident and you won't speak. Okay, so very easy to kind of get that idea there. All right, Eric says, hey Drew, you should come up with some ways to give away great deals for people like me to get fluent for life. Ponder on it and write my name down as well as a list. Anybody's looking for deals on Fluent for Life, you should be like a member of our list. So if you're not already, like get one of our guides, and those guides are free, and you might discover some deals on the program. All right. Let's see. Armando, who are you voting for in the next election? I probably will not be voting because I don't think either candidate is going to do anything. It doesn't matter whether you vote for Trump or Biden. The country is moving in the same direction. Sergio says, how much words should I learn for a day? Well, it doesn't matter how many words you learn. It's more, do you know that vocabulary well? I would rather finish a day with one new word that I understand really well than 10 words that I don't understand. So it's not the amount of vocabulary, it's how well you use it. All right, but if we focus on one word at a time, it takes a long time to be fluent in all situations. No, that's not true. It might seem like that. So at first, like, and I've given this example before, but it's, I guess, important to review it again. One of the mistakes that learners make, and this is just because it's just because of how people taught. It's not really like you did anything wrong, but you typically get, like if we imagine you're learning a bunch of words, and like let's say this is, I don't know, this is one day, and you try to learn as many words as you can in one day. But a child is learning, like maybe they learn, I don't know, fewer words, but they like really understand that vocabulary very well. So they're spending less time and they understand these words much better. So it seems like, oh, look at this. Like this person, they learned like 20 words, but this child only learned 4. Okay, I don't know how many lines there are, but let's just say it's 20 words. So if this child learns only 4 words, but they learn them very well, and this person learns 20, but they don't really know them very well. They can understand them a little bit, but they don't really feel very confident. What happens over time with these 2 learners? Okay, so they both start on the same day, like whatever today is, they both start learning, and it's the same way, and we have the child. It looks like they're improving. Whoa, look at that. They start improving very fast because they understand the vocabulary and then they can learn new things and it's much faster. But the student who does this, basically their trajectory is like this. They spend a lot of time learning, but they don't actually become more fluent. Okay? So the child, at first, it seems like they're learning less because they're just getting lots of the same. It's like, that's why children, you can have a child watch the same TV show over and over and over again because they're learning a little bit something different actually each time they watch it. They're getting a little bit more confident about it. And so instead of doing the typical way where people try to learn as many words as possible, but they don't really understand them, what we want to do is this, and like really understand things well and whoop. So it seems like it's slower, but actually it accelerates, your learning accelerates very quickly as you do this. Okay, so the alternative is probably like to keep learning where you're building a larger passive vocabulary, but you don't actually feel more confident about speaking. So your fluency isn't really improving. All right, so if you want to be fluent, just do what they do. Do what the kids do. That's what I found out about Japanese. I said, well, these Japanese kids are like, wow, I should just do that. I should learn Japanese as a first language. And so that's what I did. And that's how I got fluent. Okay. And I continue to learn new things every day. But this is my acceleration here it's much faster because now I understand how to learn and I'm learning the right way. And I have kind of fewer issues with communication because I know the vocabulary well. All right, so it's not like a slower thing to do that. How did you say linchpin? I only know a cotton pin. Yeah, linchpin. Like let me see if I could find like an image of it or something like that, because it's the best way to like. It's kind of like it's better if you just Google linchpin. So LIN. Just to see what this looks like, but it's kind of something that like there's like a pin in a little circle where you're kind of holding something together. But I suppose you could kind of draw it like a clothes pin, kind of like that, where it's something that holds everything else together. So if you remove the linchpin, like in this case, the linchpin is holding things together, and if you remove that, then everything falls apart. Okay, that's the point of a linchpin. And so it's a similar idea like this small domino. That's why I'm using both of those analogies just so you can understand what it looks like. But the point is, for most things, and I can't think of something else where this would not be true, but if you're trying to learn something, it's a much better idea to try to find like that one thing that's actually going to stop you from ultimately doing that thing. So in the case of speaking, when I thought about that, I spent many years thinking about that problem. And so I told people, well, just learn English as a first language. But it's still not very clear because that's not really getting to the heart of what's stopping you from speaking. Because you could learn as like a first language, but you still might have some issues with communication. And so the thing that really stops people is doubt. That is the thing. And so that's the linchpin, and it's basically confidence. So if you're unconfident, you will not speak. All right. So that's why I focus on trying to make sure you really understand things, and that's when you can start speaking. So you don't become fluent just by repeating vocabulary, because that doesn't help you understand anything better. Okay. All right, now I'm getting, it's already been an hour and a half over here. We go through these last questions over here. All right, is your app free? The first 3 levels of Frederick are free, yes. So you can experiment with it, see how it goes, but the whole app is very cheap. MBO says, what is the meaning of feed off? Typically, it's like you're feeding like off of something, like you like attach and you're getting some kind of nutrition or something from that. Shang says, morning. In terms of fluency, what do you think about speaking English with precision? Could you give an example of expressing something unnaturally but not losing the meaning of it? An example of expressing something unnaturally but not losing the meaning of it. Well, I mean, you could. There are different ways to speak. Like I could say some random words, or I could talk about something, but it maybe has nothing to do with what I'm actually talking about. Or I could talk about something and I could actually express it like exactly, but there would be different ways of doing that. So when we talk about precision in language, it's more, are you able to communicate what you want to say? But there are different ways of doing that. So I would just caution people about like precision in language is more like if I say like the bird is over there, but actually I'm talking about a piano that's that way, then that's like the worst kind of language because I'm saying the wrong words and I'm describing the wrong thing and it's totally confusing. But if I say like there is a bird that way, or there's a bird over there, or over yonder there's a bird. So there are different ways I could express that same idea and they would all be precise if the other person understands my meaning. So it's a connection with the other person where you talk about is the understanding understood or is my message understood. All right. I think we're almost done. Says Marco says phrasal verbs are a headache for me. You should get the visual guide to phrasal verbs. It'll make them easy to understand. All right, Raunek, how much time should we give to book reading? Because sometimes I read them for 2 to 3 hours. I can't really give you any advice about that. It's just, do you understand what you're reading and do you feel more fluent because of it? That's the only question. So it doesn't matter how much time. You could spend 10 hours doing something. Just like the bike example, I could spend 10 hours trying to learn how to do that. But if I don't get the linchpin, like holding the bike with my legs, that's what actually performs the trick. And so getting that thing correct, that took 5 seconds or something. Like that's what I should do. So I do that, and now I can do the trick. And I haven't done it in years, but I bet I could probably do it again now. Daniel says, just to be sure, a linchpin doubt is specific for everyone, depends on the context and needs of each person, and can also change depending on a given situation, right? This is a very simple idea. It's just that when people think about language learning and I try to explain to people what they have to do, you can think about this in a conversation. So if you want to say something, but you can't say it because you're nervous or you're worried about your pronunciation or your accent, or maybe you're not going to use it correctly, all of those things are doubt. And so you might feel confident about some vocabulary, but not others. And that just means you don't have doubt about this, but you do have doubt about something else. So when people talk about I'm scared to speak, or I'm shy, or I'm worried or nervous, it's just because of the doubt. Now, you might have a situation where you're actually a good speaker, but you're just shy about speaking in general. But if you have that same problem in your native language, that's not a language learning problem. That's just that's a separate issue. So lots of native English speakers who speak fluently, maybe they don't want to give a public speech because that's maybe embarrassing or whatever. So that's a different issue than developing fluency. But in general, like when I get mails from people or comments and I see there are obvious basic errors in what they write, then it's like, oh, okay, actually there's a problem there, and maybe this person doesn't realize it. So that's why like doubt is the general issue, but it depends on the specific person for that situation. So whatever that is. Ryzen says, am I late? Well, not if you're watching this recording. But yes, we're about to finish this up because we've been going for almost 100 minutes. Oh my goodness. All right, Sita, again, since I got your advice, I feel more confident because I try to understand very well and the words and expressions before going to a new topic or word. Yes, so that's a good idea. If you feel confident, you will speak. So it's much easier to do this, and you don't need to spend time with like a lot of people speaking. You don't need to live in a particular place. You can do this all by yourself. So this is what we do in Fluent for Life, and it's also what you can do by just getting a lot more examples of things. I wish my school teacher explained things as clear as... Well, it's better late than never. Do I watch anime? Not typically, but yeah, there are some that I've enjoyed. So what is it? What's the difference between how much and how many? Thank you for your correction. Well, how much is if you're talking about like a degree of something, and how many is if it's countable. All right, and MBO says, do you teach one-to-one? No, I do not, because it would cost people an arm and a leg, and it would also require time. And it's not even the best way for you to learn, because you really need to get examples from lots of different speakers. So I will get people asking me for private lessons, and I just say, why do you want private lessons? And they're like, well, you're a good teacher, whatever. And I say, yes, that's important, but at the same time, you need to get the same way you learned your native language, you need to actually get lots of different examples for English as well. So you can't just learn with one speaker. You really should be learning with many. All right, Canaro says, Drew, do you understand well the Japanese speaker who wears a mask while speaking? Because Japanese speaker itself seems... yes, like it's more difficult, but the same thing with like an English speaker as well. I mean, it would just be... It's like, it's harder to hear, and like the sounds, you can't see the mouth as well. Tommy, that's an interesting question. Do I believe in God? I guess not in the way that maybe like typical religion would like explain it, but sure, yeah. And it's because like if you look at the world, and this is like like an interesting topic to end on, but like there are certain rules about a reality that like, I mean, I guess you could say there was a big bang and things happened or whatever, but like that explanation is just as, I don't know, like just as plausible, I suppose, as like us kind of creating this idea. And so it's kind of a long discussion about that, but in general, it's more when I think about God, it's thinking about rules, that there are like rules that we should follow, and like you tend to enjoy a better life if you do. But anyway, we can maybe save that for not the end of a 90-minute video. Are you living in the U.S.? No, I'm in Japan. How much it costs? How many money do you need? Is that correct? No, you would say how much money do you need? This is not a religious video. Are you a Christian? I guess, well, not in like the typical sense, in like I don't believe in like a God like kind of separate from us, but because it makes more sense that everything would be connected in one system, if that makes sense. But again, this is probably not the best time to try to explain that, because it would take a while. But I think it's an interesting idea. Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about becoming fluent, which I do know a lot more about, anyway, then you can click on the links in the description below this video to learn more about that, and then we will see you in the next video.